People have asked, do you have to have your thumbs in the joints of the ring finger and loose fist on the knees? No, you don't have to do it that way. I'm passing that along because that is the way that Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche teaches. So that is the way most people do it at KTD. But there is also the posture of having the right hand and left thumbs touching, relaxed in the lap. There are various other mudras, like we mentioned before. Sometimes you see people with their hands in a posture like this, extended out on their knees. That is the mudra of truthfulness. There are certain other postures that people take that attract a particular energy, and we sit in that posture because it helps direct the chi or the lung, the vital life force, in a particular kind of way that helps to negate negative thoughts, anger, and aggression and those kinds of things. So it actually helps with our sitting practice. But very important to remain straight so you're not forward or back or to the side. So in the beginning, before you sit, it's fine to do a little stretching, spinal twist, neck rolls, so that you can sit comfortably without distraction, physical distraction from your body. So yoga plays an important role, the hatha yoga, the postures, to help stretch the body out again, and really it was designed, as we said, to help the body sit for extended periods of time in meditation without distraction. So before you sit, stretching a little bit is nice. So with the firm foundation, sitting on a zafu, we want your hips to be about 4 finger widths, about 4 inches above your knees. So the knees should be relaxed on the floor. Hands relaxed on the knees. Straightness of spine. Do that little Kegel exercise by tightening the sphincter of the anus and the urethral sphincter. Tighten them up a little bit and then release. Tongue's resting on the roof of the mouth. Eyes are down on the horizon, or looking down about a 45-degree angle down, and 1 pound weight off the chin, tucking the chin in slightly, not excessively so, but that straightens up the upper cervical vertebrae a little bit more. So we take the proper posture to begin. That will really facilitate your meditation, reducing distraction and encouraging concentration. So focus the awareness on the breathing in, breathing out. We've talked about counting the breath as a kind of a prop at first to focus the awareness and your attention. At some point you can let go of the counting and just imagine the cool air coming in on the inhale. You can pause for a moment. Exhale out, feeling the warmth of the nostrils on the exhale. And so you can almost see the flow of breath out as a stream, inhaling in, exhaling out, pausing maybe a little bit between the top of the inhale and the bottom of the exhale, that place of no breath, calm, peaceful place. Relax the belly. Again, Buddha's first advice in sitting is to sit comfortably. So as you sit more and more in this posture, if you stretch a little bit before, it should be comfortable. And if you need to sit in a chair, that's also fine. We have the eyes half open, half closed, not overly excited and without torpor or laziness or drowsiness, but unfocused. The eyes are relaxed. Remembering that we're not trying to push thoughts away. Thoughts may inevitably come, we're just not attaching ourselves to them. We observe them. The mind is spacious, like the sky, empty. And these thoughts may come into our awareness and are self-liberated. They have their time and their dissolution. You don't have to attend to them, give them any energy, or elaborate upon them in any way. You just view it with a certain detachment and bring your awareness back to the breath, whether it be a thought or a feeling or emotion. Let it go. Also be mindful of your posture, and if it begins to collapse or you lose your straightness, straighten back up again, maintaining the straightness of your spine and the correctness of your posture. Well, time flies when you're having fun. Our last day. So we'll review a little bit, particularly, the sitting practice, the walking meditation, and the four ordinary foundations, the four thoughts that turn the mind to Dharma. So as part of our practice, yesterday we did a similar kind of thing that we just did. We had our Shinei practice. We walked a little bit. We sat a little bit again, and then we dedicated the merit. But at home, a contemplation of the four ordinary foundations before you practice would be important. Why are we practicing? Developing the motivation to practice is important. And these four ordinary foundations, as they're called, as opposed to the four extraordinary that we talked about, the Nundro practice, are designed really to cultivate this feeling of importance for your meditation practice. There was a question yesterday about, how do Tibetans or teachers feel about Westerners, and I feel a little bit bad about saying that they think we're lazy, but not lazy, again, in the sense that, we all have very busy lives, and it's like we can't even squeeze in 15 or 20 minutes to meditate. And we would have to kind of wonder, well, what do you mean lazy? I mean, I don't have time for anything. But these are often seen as myriad distractions to really what's important. And when it comes down to it, and you're about to draw your last breath, all of the titles, all of the things that we've accumulated really are not going to be of much value. What is going to be of value to you is the state of your mind. Are you in a relaxed, awake state? And all of the things that we strive for, that we've said in this samsaric world, and we put our attention on, are ultimately impermanent, have no lasting value. So in order to really bring that home to us on a regular basis, we practice what are called the four foundations. So we're going to practice those a little bit today again. And what I'd like for you to do is just close your eyes. And we'll review these and meditate. Again, we said that the importance here is to hear, to contemplate, and to meditate. So we've had the map here. You've been given the map. If you're going someplace, we have the map. Then you have to study the map, and then you've got to follow the directions to get to the place. So we're going to follow the directions to get to the place. And this is part of the practice now. We've heard, we've been studying and going over these things, and now we really have to make it our own. So the first foundation is the preciousness of this human life. If we consider our lives, from the larger perspective of cyclic existence, samsara, this round of birth and death from beginningless time, through all of these realms, we can see that despite, the problems that we face, we are still in a better situation than many of the other realms and even other human beings. We're not in a war-torn situation. We have the leisure to practice. That's what makes this a precious human birth. We have the facility of mind, the faculties of mind to understand, contemplate, and practice the teachings of the Buddha. We've been born into a situation with means. We have all of the necessary qualifications in this precious human birth to practice the Dharma. So, we could be born in a hell realm, a hungry ghost realm, an animal realm, but we were not. We could be born with defects so that we really wouldn't have, or where no Dharma was available. We were not. We were born in this human realm with all of the causes and conditions, according to the teachings of the Buddha, necessary to give us the best chance for achieving enlightenment, awakening. We've had a good upbringing, we have all the resources, all the things necessary. We are fortunate. And to sit with this realization of gratitude of our good fortune is part of the recognition of the preciousness of this human birth. So the contemplation for this first ordinary foundation, precious human life, is to contemplate, to think about the preciousness of our lives. Until we come to a deeply felt sense that we have what is called the precious human birth. It's not precious unless we use it. That's what makes it precious. Having all the qualities and conditions necessary is not enough. We actually have to understand our good fortune. And we must use it wisely by practicing the path toward enlightenment. So we contemplate this. So let's take a few moments to recognize, to appreciate, to contemplate this precious human birth. What makes it precious? Understanding we have all the resources, physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual, having come in contact with the Dharma, to realize the awakened state of the Buddha. This contemplation should be done until you recognize the truth of the preciousness of your current human existence. Next comes the truth of impermanence, the second foundation. And even though we've obtained this precious human birth, it does not last forever. None of us know. Death could come at any time. We don't know how much time we have, how long we will live, or how our lives will end. And in a way, our lives are very fragile. You can read in the news about bridges falling down and catastrophes of floods and hurricanes and natural phenomena and just old age, sickness, and death. In a way, it's very fragile, and none of us know really how much time we were going to have to practice. So thinking about this is not meant to make us depressed. Some people feel like Buddhism is a very depressing kind of study, but it is how it is, it is the way it is, and we want to look at it directly and nakedly about how this life is, and the truth of impermanence is very real. We think about death so that we'll not waste our time and live more fully, more completely, with grace and wisdom, understanding, peace and tranquility. So let's take a moment to contemplate this foundation of impermanence until we come to a deeply felt sense of our time is short and precious, and we should use it to the utmost of our ability to practice the Dharma. And we contemplate this until we feel deeply and strongly this foundation that indeed impermanence is a realization that we must come to. The next of the four foundations, the third foundation, is the truth of karma. And the first words of the Buddha in his first sermon was basically, we are what we think. All that arises begins with our thought. Our body, actions, speech, all originate based on thought. This is a basic teaching about karma, the law of cause and effect. Good deeds result in good actions. Bad deeds result in bad results. It's pretty straightforward. And again, it's called the law of karma, because there's no escape. It is a law like gravity. All of our words and actions start as thoughts, so our intention, our motivation, we create from a certain momentum of habit. We talk about negative habitual patterns that lead us to a great deal of suffering. And whether they be good thoughts or bad thoughts, it's these thoughts that eventually determine, who and what we will become. If you want to know what your future life will be, you can look at the thought you're thinking right now. And if you want to know how you got to where you are right now, look at the thought that you're thinking. We've had good fortune. We said we have this precious human life. And we know it's impermanent. And we know that our actions are going to dictate the quality of the mind stream of our future actions and consequently lives. So each of us is born, with a set of predispositions based on these causes and conditions, karmic circumstances from previous lives. And we either reinforce these confused states, or we gradually purify them and discard them and take up new, hopefully more enlightened states of mind. So as we said from the onset, the teaching of the Buddha can pretty much be summed up by avoiding negative and cultivating positive and taming our mind. Positive actions bring positive results, negative actions bring negative results. And usually what divides these two things is in the realm of action about this sense of self, coming from a selfish point of view or attitude. Does the action bolster, our sense of ego and self, or does it strengthen, this sense of other and the bodhisattva qualities that we were talking about in bodhicitta? If an action bolsters selfishness and strengthens, the erroneous view of this permanent, unchanging, solid self, then it's going to bear fruit as suffering, inevitably. If the action is selfless and strengthens, our view in a self, basically that is illusory and impermanent and continuously changing, it will result in positive actions towards others and bear fruit as happiness and well-being, peace and tranquility. That's karma. So let's contemplate this. We should contemplate this foundation, the law of karma, until we come to a deeply felt sense that our thoughts, words, actions all produce consequences, and that these determine who we'll become in the future. So we try our best to be mindful of all of our thoughts, words, and deeds, and vow to practice the Dharma, to purify these habitual negative patterns, and to cultivate positive thoughts that lead to actions, positive actions in body, speech, and mind. Contemplate this law of karma, seeing the truth of this law, and vow to be mindful of body, speech, and mind, the actions that we produce. The fourth of the four is called the defects of samsara. No matter how hard we try, we cannot turn samsara into paradise. Buddha's first noble truth is there is suffering. The unenlightened mind suffers. There'll be disappointment if we attach ourselves to things that are impermanent and ephemeral. We attach ourselves wanting things not to change. But that's the nature of samsara. There are basically three types of samsara, three types of suffering. There's the suffering itself, suffering of suffering. It is physical, mental pain we experience as part of samsaric existence. It's what happens when we get sick, when we suffer an injury or an attack, loss of someone close to us, thought of getting old, and all of the emotions of sadness and anger and mental pain that accompany the changes in the external world that are not under our control. The suffering of suffering. I think we all know about the suffering of suffering. So we have to look at it. Okay, suffering. This is samsara. There's going to be suffering. The suffering of change is experienced when we first experience, this, we might even have happiness, and that's great, but it's not lasting. Suddenly it ends, and we come in contact with something we loathe or fear. So there's this suffering of change. We don't want to have the things we don't like. We don't want to cling to the things we do like, this attachment and aversion. And constantly, we're happy, we're suddenly not happy. Disappointments, loss, change. So again, that is samsara. It's impermanent and it's changeable. If we attach ourselves to something, you're going to be very disappointed because that something is inevitably going to change. And then there's the third suffering that is called the suffering of the composite, as it is called. And this refers to the suffering that is kind of built into samsara, the existential dilemma that we find ourselves in general. We experience this type of pain because the world quite simply is just made that way. It's just what we call the samsaric life. Starting again with part of the Four Noble Truths, that there is suffering, and that takes the form of our birth, old age, sickness, death, dissatisfactions that we have with the way things are. You get a new car, you're happy, the car breaks, you're unhappy. You get a new house, the plumbing goes out, the electricity goes out, you're unhappy. Happy for a moment, unhappy. It's just the nature of samsaric life. So, these are the defects of samsara. And through our practice, we're saying that we want to